Hello, aviators. Welcome back to the Pro-Pilot Playbook podcast, where we bring you insights into your career, the hacks, the tricks, the tips, the shortcuts to get you through your flight training in the shortest amount of time and the least amount of money possible. Here with Mike Martin.
Hi.
And I'm Sean Ritchie. And today is going to be another one of those viewer / listener questions that we'll answer here. And
Okay, that sounds great.
Yep. And you probably saw from the title of this podcast, I had to leave it the way it was. That was the actual subject line of the email that we got from Joshua. And pilots, beards, and books. It was a great title for the podcast too. I don't know if he did that on purpose or not, but
yeah, that's a catchy title, man. That'll get you on the air, man. That's
right.
That's a good way to get on the air, man. To think of a good title for your email. No,
right.
we love them coming in. So it's great to have feedback from everybody. We got some really nice emails from a couple course members from over Christmas. Telling them they really enjoyed our course and their on their career and training, and it's just really nice to hear that, because
the response has been amazing since we started doing this viewer question thing. I mean, they're coming in, and we're gonna have to start doing multiple questions in an episode, or not ramble on so much about topics or something, but to get through them.
Right, to get through them all. Didn't one guy actually send in an audio file? That was kind of cool.
Yes. He actually recorded, I think, any email. I know Gmail does it, or you could do it on your phone, record a voice memo and email it. That's great too, because we can just play you actually asking the question on the podcast.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And if you have a question you would like us to answer here, you can email us at podcast at propilotplaybook.com, and we'll do the exact same thing with your questions we're doing right now. And this one comes from Joshua. Hello guys, I have 2 questions, and actually it's formatted like number 1, number 2, so we'll break it up. Do the first question here. Number 1, I'm 28 and I'm considering a career change into aviation as a pilot. From what I've read, airline pilots have to be clean shaven. I have a goatee, and I would like to keep it if possible. Are the rules different on the corporate side, corporate versus cargo side? Thanks. And he's referring to the facial hair on each side of the fence there.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And so as far as facial hair goes, this is you see guys with mustaches, the old guys, the old captain at the airlines, a lot of those guys have mustaches, and most airlines will let you have a mustache. There's all kinds of rules on, it can't go past your lip. It can't go past this, whatever, how thick it is. They got, there's in the company manual, there's always all kinds of stuff on that. But as far as full on facial hair, having a beard or goatee or something like that, it's
no,
can't do it. Can't do
it. And I don't know. I don't know if you've heard this, Sean, but I've always heard and I don't know if it's part of this is companies want you to look clean cut and they hide around this, or if it really is a safety issue. But it makes logical sense. So they say that it's the oxygen mask. So for those of you that are just starting out, don't know, when you're flying a jet, and you're up in the upper atmosphere, we have what's called, time of useful consciousness. And if you're up in, 40,000 feet or something, it can be measured in seconds. I mean, there's charts on the internet you can look at where if the airplane does decompress, you only have, a few seconds to put your mask on or you're passed out. So we have these masks, they're like $6,000 or $10,000 that are right over our shoulder. We pull out and they actually inflate. There's a big web goes over your head and then it sucks onto your face, and then it provides 100% oxygen to you. And those things can't seal correctly, especially in a vacuum like that. If you have a big Zach Brown beard, that ain't gonna work. So there is, it's not just they want you to look clean cut, which is a very important thing too, because you're representing the company. Delta Airlines, they want you to look good. Or if you're a corporate pilot, you're dealing with these super high net worth business people and stuff. They don't want to look rough. But it is a good question. I mean, because that is it. I mean, my gosh, everybody's got a beard now. It's kind of the cool thing to have.
Oh yeah,
So
I go to get my hair cut, and in the place they got a whole rack of products for guys with beards. All kinds of you know beard oil and all this other stuff I've never even knew existed. There's a whole market for all this stuff now because it's very popular. You're not
right,
even talking about a beard; you're talking about a goatee, but yeah,
still,
you just can't do it. Up until that point where you get that first real professional job, you can, as a flight instructor, you can have a beard or, goatee, whatever. Nobody's ever going to say anything to you being a flight instructor. And some of your smaller, your first few jobs, building time, if you're out there flying a pipeline or doing mapping, or I was even flying a 135 charter company for freight. Um, we would do, the big airplane would take off from the hub and land in a, whatever, let's just say Denver. And then from Denver, all the little airplanes would, like a Caravan or a Metroliner, a little light twin or something. These things would take off from Denver and fly into smaller cities that have a population of 3 to 10,000 people. They only got a few UPS or FedEx trucks. So that little plane would bring the boxes in there. We didn't even wear uniforms, at that company, and everybody just whatever you want. I mean, you could have a beard if you want in that situation and nobody's going to care. But once you get into more high performance pressurized jet, yeah, the beard isn't going to work. I mean, you're talking about, Mike just mentioned the time useful. It's a really harsh environment outside that machine when you're in the 40,000 foot level. I mean, the temperature's negative 50 Celsius, which is pretty much negative 50 Fahrenheit.
with a
Um,
wind chill of 400.
yeah, the wind's blowing 100 knots. If it's rapid decompression, the air is going to be sucked out of that airplane and your lungs in a matter of seconds. It's going to be there's going to be a fog, a mist in the air, and you're going to be freezing to death. All the air is going to be sucked out of your lungs. You can't breathe. You're not going to know what's going on. In training, it almost becomes like a muscle memory reflex when something like that starts happening. The first thing you do is grab that mask because you have, it's measured in seconds, maybe even less than 2 seconds, fractions of seconds, to get that mask on before you are passed out.
Yeah, agreed. Very important. So, just notice there's methods to that. Now, these airlines, I just thought of a funny story, but these airlines have extremely strict uniform policies. Wear a hat, don't wear a hat, and you have to be neat. Everything has to be pressed, has to all match and everything. And
Right.
Sean worked there too, but we worked at a very strict uniform place. And there's a gentleman there that always, he was in the management, and he would inspect your uniform before flight, and very, very picky. So yeah, I know you know what I'm going to
I
say. The
know what you're
story
talking
I
about
had,
now.
I
Yeah.
actually
Or
just
who
thought
you're
about this.
talking about, I should say.
I haven't thought about this in like 10 years, actually. So it was really funny. So this guy, everybody knew he was a stickler for all this stuff. And he actually bought a shoe shiner because one of the guys, he didn't like how shoes was polished, and ex-military guy. So they were doing an article in an aviation magazine, came to the company to highlight this company and interview all the managers and all this stuff. It's a big freaking deal. It's a big magazine, and it was a big company. And of course, this gentleman that I'm referring to was involved in this interview. And then they at the end of the interview, they're like, yeah, we really like to get some shots of around and some shots of some planes and everything.
Right. They brought a
And then they're like,
photographer with them, and it was going to
yeah,
be,
yeah,
possibly on the cover of the magazine and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, you remember. So they got them down there, and they had some planes. They like, we really like some pilots, to take some photos of. And they're like, well, we'll be on the cover,
Because
And they're like,
they're just wearing business attire, like suits and stuff,
right, right,
managing
right,
it.
right.
Right.
So these guys, they're like,
Who
well,
were
it'd be
also
great if you had it.
pilots. I keep interrupting you, but I want to give
Yeah, yeah.
the full,
The full,
these guys that they're interviewing, they're in management now. So they're like the director of operations and whatever, but
right.
these guys all used to be pilots. It's just they happened to be go-getters and they ended up in the management of the company. And yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with this. It's just funny. These guys are funny. So they were like, well, we'd really like to have a uniform on these guys, if that's possible. And they're like, I think we got one. So they between these management pilots, they throw together this uniform, and it looked good. Like for a normal person, it would, if
sure.
you guys saw the picture, it looked fine. But there was all kinds of things wrong with it. Like the tie wasn't right, and it wasn't the correct wings, and all these things were missing.
Things
And
aren't
no
spaced
hat.
right in between the wings and name
Right.
tags. And yeah,
Because they threw it together. So then they end up on the cover of this magazine representing the company, and their uniforms all wrong. So we had a field day. I remember there was a bulletin board in the office there, and of course, when no one's around, somebody puts the picture up there and then circles all the things that are wrong,
right.
and then photocopies the ops manual that shows all this. And
I
this,
I remember the circles and the arrows pointing into like things on the whatever. And yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh
And
my
I don't
gosh.
know. That's one of the, it's funny because, well, it's funny to us because we both lived through it, but the uniform Nazi guy, he has to walk by that every day going in and out of his office. And, he was part of that whole spectacle. It was just, yeah.
Yeah, good. Those
But
are good stories, but yeah,
the,
that's important.
just to verify, before we answered this, when I saw your email, I did call, even the freight operators, FedEx, UPS, those are major airlines. Those guys all adhere to the same standards as Delta and whatever. But just to make sure, I had some buddies that fly for Southern Air and Atlas Air. This is a freight operator. They're doing all the Amazon stuff. And they operate like a major airline. They've got big stuff. They got 777s, they got 76s, they got a whole fleet of
Right.
737s, but
Hmm.
their company is operated, not talking bad about them or anything. Cause I mean, they're moving leaps and bounds. I mean, they're growing big time. Actually, today there was just an article that Bezos or Amazon, Jeff Bezos,
Hmm.
just bought some more 767s. And, he had been having Atlas and Southern Air, as contract do all this Amazon work. And the
Hmm.
article, I didn't read the whole article. I just kind of saw the headline, but it read as he bought them, which
Mm.
that's interesting. So maybe he's
Yeah.
going to start his own thing now on top of whatever to help deliver everything. But anyway, their company standards and everything, they're a little laxed, because mainly because they're getting so big so fast. And they're hiring pilots that are, those guys sitting in that 777 aren't exactly at the same experience level as the guys flying the 777 for other operators.
Oh
um,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's 25, 27-year-old kids flying in the right seat of that 777. So
Well, here's the other thing too. No one sees them. There's no passengers. So
right, right. So that's, yeah, exactly. So I thought, you know what, if there's a company out there that's operating major equipment, doing that kind of job that allows you to have facial hair, it'd be them. So I called up my buddies, and no, they're not
no.
even allowed. No, they're not even allowed to have mustaches.
Mm.
I guess that came down a few years ago because guys were getting carried away having these big handlebar things with the curls and just getting nuts with it. So they're not even allowed to have any facial hair whatsoever. But evidently, there are quite a few guys that, will, because you're out there in the middle of the night flying all over the world. There are a lot of guys that do still have mustaches at that company. So I hear that they'll shave it off before they go to recurrent or something. But
Yeah.
um,
So
it,
is he? People are going to watch this and go, you know what? Forget the pilot thing. I can't have a
yeah.
beard. No, I'm just joking.
Right.
I
Well,
know
you
that was a
mentioned the
good question.
appearance thing. It is important to have your pilot looking sharp. I don't disagree with that. I mean, as a passenger, imagine, you're boarding, your Delta Airlines, and everybody kind of looks up in the cockpit there as you're getting on the plane. I mean, you don't want to look up there and see the dude from Big Lebowski, you know, sitting in the captain's seat. You want a clean cut, guy sitting up there, and the facial hair, I think, takes away from that a little bit.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, well, I mean, you're right though. The beard thing is becoming popular. Maybe we're moving away from that, but I see a lot of there are foreign operators. I see foreign guys
Oh
where
yeah.
with a lot more facial hair. Uh, I don't know, maybe not the big major whatever, but I see a lot of foreign pilots with facial hair. But
Hmm.
United States, no, get it out of your head. But like I said, in the beginning of your career, you'll be able to get away with your goatee for quite a while in the beginning of your career. But I wouldn't sacrifice, this amazing lifestyle over that.
No,
I
Y-
mean,
y- I had another boss at the beginning of my career that really wanted us to look clean shaved. And I remember, one of the times, I forgot to shave in the morning or whatever, and he would
oh yeah,
stop and he'd go, Mike, you need to stand a little closer to your razor in the morning. I'm saying that, man.
good,
Yeah,
good
they had
one. Yeah,
strict dress codes on that. So, yeah, not in this business. I don't think you're going to see many uh, big beards.
now, now. All
Good
right.
question, though.
Yes, it is a good question. There's probably, yeah, a lot of guys probably, or yeah, guys wondering that. All right.
Yep.
Second part of his question here, Joshua asked, see, number 2. I'm probably about 6 months out to a year out before I can start any flight training due to my current workload with my business. Are there any books or early studying material you'd recommend that I can do on my own to get a head start? I appreciate your podcast and your YouTube channel. Thank you for the advice, Joshua. So, books. Mike, what do you think? What do you got?
Oh man, there's so much stuff available. There's a lot of free stuff available. I think one place he could start. And they're friends of ours, the great company, Sporty's Pilot Shop. It's sporties.com.
Yeah.
Basically, it came from. It used to be in the 80s or 70s. The only place to buy pilot supplies were these small pilot shops at airports, and they would sell charts and knee boards and all that kind of stuff. Well, these guys took it to a whole nother level, and they're the premier supplier of pilot supplies. I mean, you can get anything from uniforms there to headsets to charts to even cool fun stuff like model planes of the plane you're flying, and anything you could think of they sell. And it was a catalog business, then it became an internet business, obviously. But check them out, and their reference of books is unbelievable. They have all kinds of things, to look at. But I think we all, my generation got started with books. I mean, I checked a book out of the library. I can remember when I was in high school about becoming a pilot, but it's so outdated now. I don't even want to say, but yeah, I would say that any test prep book would be good. You're going to have to take your private pilot written. That'll be the first test you'll take. So maybe a book that helps a study guide. There's study guides for that. There's oral exam study guides. Those might be good to read. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, well, that's actually, I was just looking around my office here. I don't have it in here. It must be downstairs in our bookshelves. But
Yeah.
as far as books go, and this doesn't really have anything to do with just starting out learning to fly, but it's a great little, and they have it on apps now. You can actually get this on for the iPad or the phone, and it's made by a company called ASA, and it's called the Oral Exam Guide. And they make one
Yeah.
for each certificate, for the private certificate, for the instrument rating, for the commercial certificate, for the CFI. And it's basically just a book of questions. So when you get your certificate, when you get your pilot's license, there's actually 3 different parts of it. There's the written test that you'll take at a computer testing location before the actual, practical test, the flying portion. And that's a whole nother thing to study for. And the government releases all the questions. There's a bank of, like, for the private pilot, there's a bank of probably 600, 700 questions. And then there'll be 60 questions pulled from that randomly that you'll get on the computer. But you can study all 600 or 700 questions and before you go in. So a lot of it is almost memorization.
Right.
And then there's the practical test, which is two parts. There's flying the airplane. You actually go up with an examiner and he'll watch you fly, make sure you're safe, know what you're doing. And then there's the oral part. And the oral part is where he's going to sit there at a table and just ask you questions. Well, what would you do if this happened? Or why do you think we have this on an airplane? That kind of thing. And this oral exam guide, one of the reasons I say I like it is because it's just a bunch of it's a book full of just general aviation knowledge. And a lot of it is off the wall stuff and
Very good.
in practical, useful information. And, has the question they may ask and an answer. Anyway,
Yeah.
I have those books. I've had them, some of them since I first started flying. I bought a new one when I went back to flight instructing a couple years ago when we were creating the program, just so I could have current information. But they're still great. But there is a plethora. I mean, that word gets used. I like that word, but there are so many flying books. Even when we were coming up before the internet was around, there was tons and tons and tons of them, and there still is. And now everything's moving to an online thing. But Sporties, you mentioned Sporties has a great online, that whole online thing they have, where it's not just each. They've got it like a library of all this stuff. So you download like their viewing platform, and then whatever you purchase is in there in your library. But yeah, there's a ton of that kind of stuff, the nuts and bolts of how to fly an airplane out there.
There's the flight training handbook, which is actually an FAA approved book on basic flying. Like if you're going to learn to fly small planes, fantastic. Talks about traffic patterns and all that kind of stuff. So there's some stuff you could dig in there to get into the nuts and bolts about flying. Now, if you're a step below that, where you're just wanting to get into flying, there's obviously our course that we have that is like designed to tell you exactly how to start your training. This guy, I don't know, he seems like he's already made his mind up and probably knows what he's doing. I don't know what.
Well,
it's
he
hard
says
to tell.
He's 6 months to a year out before he can start training.
Oh no, he's a prime candidate then.
Yeah, so that's I've said this before, but the next 45 seconds to a minute is going to be a straight commercial, folks. It's a straight commercial for our program. I mean, Joshua, it's almost like you asked the perfect question for us to talk about the program.
It was a plant. That must have been a plant.
I mean, this podcast is an accompaniment to the actual program we have, the Pro-Pilot Playbook, which you can find at pro-pilotplaybook.com. I just sat here and said plethora 18 times about how many books there are on how to fly, how to operate an airplane, how to pass a test, how to whatever. But there is nothing. That's why we created it. There is no other product like it on the market that teaches you how to manage your career and how the whole system works and how to get from never driving to the airport before to landing your first job at an airline or a charter company or something. I mean, literally it is it is the best thing. I mean, it's why we made it. It's the best thing for you right now. I mean, obviously I think it's great because Mike and I created it. We're proud of it, but especially, you haven't even driven to the airport yet. I mean, we go through flight school selection. We go through finding your CFI, flying on this airplane compared to that airplane. How to, oh God, I don't know. I can sit here and talk about it.
Well, and then don't forget there is the nuts and bolts part of it too.
The accompaniment,
we've got.
There's an adder that you get for free. It's a whole separate mini course that comes with the main program. Yeah, this was Mike's brainchild, baby. It's beautiful.
Yeah, so it's called the Flight Training Jumpstart course, but basically what it does is there's nothing. This is even. It's not even while you're doing your training videos to help you with your training. This is actually a video series to help you have the knowledge you need before your first lesson. So it talks about very basic things that most people don't know, like how to steer the airplane stalls, how the engines work, and what to expect on your first few flights. So if you watch this, the objective is that as soon as you walk into your first lesson, you're going to be way ahead. And those lessons are expensive. And
Right. You're talking about what this instrument does and how it works, and
yeah,
how the heater works in an airplane. This is all stuff that is going to have to be taught to you anyway, and it's typically taught in that first 3-4 hours or something.
right.
That you will be paying for by
the hour.
Yeah, by the hour from your instructor. So when he starts talking about how this works or something, you could be like, "Oh yeah, that's a vacuum instrument, and we have this one as a backup for that is electric." And what he's going to be like, "Oh, so you already know." You're not going to waste a bunch of time there. But the main program, not only goes through how the prerequisites and what you need for each certificate and rating, but we also give our 2 cents on how to hack the system and get it done faster and cheaper in each one of those scenarios. And then after you're done with all that, after you get your CFI, and it's your turn to teach people how to fly, certificate flight instructor. We teach you how to maximize that, how to make sure you're full of students and getting the most bang for your buck with that certificate. And then from there, we have time building secrets. We have, how to get yourself into a jet with almost no time, how to, handle an interview, creating a resume. There's even examples of resumes in there. They're Word documents you can just have. All kinds of stuff.
The commercial breaks over, Sean. It's over.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I just think it's. I mean, yeah.
People are going to stop watching, man. If all
I know. Yeah, they probably already hit stop.
but no. But I mean, it is really good, and this guy needs it now that you say that. I mean, because it is exactly what he's asking for. So yeah. Hopefully that gets him. But those were. Did he have another question on there? Or?
No, that was it. He had the beards and the books, pilots, beards, and books. It's 2 questions.
I love the catchy title, man, and that. Well, so if you send us a question and you got a catchy title like that, we'll just name our episode after that.
Right.
Then you'll know when you see it drop on your phone. You'll be like, I guess they're answering my question.
Right. There you go. Then I don't have to try to come up with something clever.
Right. Right.
You don't have to come up with something clever. Yeah.
Yeah. That's you, man.
Well, yeah. I'm the guy. Yeah. Trying to.
He's the clever guy.
Put it on YouTube, I guess. Whatever.
Right.
So I think that we got it. We nailed it. If you have a question for us you'd like us to answer on the podcast here, email us at podcast@propilotplaybook.com.
Awesome.
We appreciate everything. Happy New Year.
Yeah. Happy New Year. All right.
And we'll see you next week.
Yep. Next week.